Let's talk unions, kind of. I have been working for Trader Joe's for 5 years. In fact, I just had my 5th year anniversary a month ago. And I love working at Trader Joe's. It's actually, I've worked in many industries. I've had well over 30 jobs, 30 different types of jobs in my life. And Trader Joe's is by far one of the better companies I've ever worked for. And no, it's not perfect. I'm not stating it's perfect, but it is by far, compared to anything else I've ever worked for, it is by far one of the best companies I've ever been employed by. One of the reasons why I love working at Trader Joe's is, first of all, the positive community, the supportive community, and not just the people that I work with, but the customers that come in. It's all about the human connection, right? It's all about talking to people. We don't have self-checkouts. We talk to people. When people come to our line, like, we actually have conversations. And it's just, I really love the vibe of Trader Joe's. And then of course, I love the food and love the health insurance. By far, it's the best health insurance I've ever had, and from any company ever. They've also been extremely flexible with schedules, and not just my schedule, but other people's schedules. There's a lot of different types of people there, like, actors and musicians, and like if you need to go on tour, if you want to go do a play, or if you want to transfer stores, they're really, really welcoming with that. I teach 4 classes outside of working Trader Joe's, or maybe I work Trader Joe's outside of teaching 4 classes, a little bit of both. And they've always been so good about my schedule, and if my schedule changes, like my teaching schedule. Also, if over the summer or like on winter break, if I want to pick up an extra day here and there, as long as it's available, they've always been so good about that. And of course, I want to attribute that to, the upper management that I work with and the vibe, and just kind of that is the culture that the people at Trader Joe's has created. And I couldn't be more grateful for it. I mentioned earlier about a union. All right, let's talk about this. There's already, I believe it's 4 stores within the company. There's about 500-ish stores in the United States. And Hadley, which is just outside Boston, was the first store to unionize. And then I know there's one in Minneapolis and one in Louisville. I think there's one in California. There's still no contract yet. So while they voted yes to unionize, there still is no contract. Now, cut to my store in Chicago, and my store is currently now trying to unionize. But I want to talk about not necessarily the union, but the organization of how we found out about the store wanting to unionize. Let me start off with, I'm not anti-union. That's not what this is all about. That unions are a great tool, they're a great asset, they're a great organization to help certain jobs and industries and businesses. So I get that. But right now we're just talking about the union that is being formed, my Trader Joe's specifically. It was announced on Sunday, April 7th, that the store wanted to unionize. And it was brought to upper management of like, hey, this is something that we're working towards. Now, there's a lot of logistics that go into forming a union. There has to be an announcement that there's a petition that needs to be signed to make sure that there is enough people interested in wanting to form a union. So like, clearly if they don't get enough like signatures, or they don't get enough curiosity, they're not going to move forward with this. There is a lot of work that goes into forming a union that you have to they don't want upper management to know because they're afraid of union busting. So and I get all that. I get all of that. So as I mentioned, April 7th is when it was announced to upper management. It was a Sunday, a week before I found out about this. This was the first I'd heard about it. I didn't really know much about it. And I was told 1 week prior. And we have about, I think, 150 crew members in our store, so it's a lot to tackle. I found out that the organization of this, I know for sure has been going on for at least 3, 4, 5 months, but I believe it's really been going on for about a year. I do know that certain people were, initially asked. Of course, you're going to ask the people that maybe that you trust, or that that will be on your side. Like, I get that. That's not lost on me. Part that I'm having issues with, and it's not just me, but there's a bunch of us that are having issues with, is how the organization went about. There were a slew of people that the people organizing the union decided not to talk to. They decided not to talk to a lot of the veterans of Trader Joe's, meaning the people that have been working there, the crew that have been working there 10 to 20 years. These are people that have been there for a really long time. Some of these people found out the day of when the big announcement was made. Some of them found out like the day after when they came, into work. Some of us, like it was me, I found out the week before, but I had very little information. In fact, when I was first told about it, I thought, tell me what do you have? Like, what's the platform? Like, tell me, I want to know more about it. I didn't get a lot of information. It's still like in the beginning stages, but at the same time, this has been being worked on for about a year. But I do know that major people were left out of this conversation. That a decision was made by a select group of people to talk about, union dues and what they want in the contract, or maybe what they don't want in the contract, but they decided to not consult a group of people. That someone made, or maybe a small group of people decided to make a decision to how to take care of 150 to 170 employees without consulting everybody, particularly the veterans that work there. Now, I've been there for 5 years. I would never consider myself a veteran, but I've been there long enough to know, and that you shouldn't alienate people. You should not leave people out of the conversation. That does not cause any sort of camaraderie. In fact, if anything, it's going to alienate people, and people are going to feel left out. People are going to feel not part of the conversation, and we're going to lose trust. Now, throughout all of this that's been happening in the last 2 weeks, we're finding out like who knew and who didn't, and when did people find out, and the work environment is completely changed, and there's so much animosity, and there's this justification, or there's this reasoning of why people did what they did, but it all comes down to people were alienated. People were left out of the conversation. And that's not a way to form any type of union, a job union or otherwise. The definition of the word union is to bring people together. And right now, our store is divided. Now, what's gonna happen? I'm not sure, because there's a vote that's supposedly happening in like 10 days, so we're gonna see what happens. But a lot of us are really upset, and being upset is an understatement. We are livid. I'm amazed that it got this far without talking to people, and people have lost trust. People have lost the ability to trust somebody. And while yes, there's going to be a vote, and whether or not the vote is yes or the vote is no, we still all have to work together. There is a next day, that there is a next day of like, regardless of the vote, people are still upset, and including myself. So I think about, what are the consequences? What are the consequences in the community that you build, regardless if it's a job community or if it's a work community or you're building a union? What are the consequences when you alienate people, and how do you think people will feel?